If you were asked to name any animated Disney movies, you'd most likely mention the more popular ones like The Lion King, Cinderella, Pinocchio, Beauty and the Beast, Winnie the Pooh, Frozen, Aladdin, Tangled, The Little Mermaid, Moana, and many more. But there are some Disney movies that general audiences have never heard of, like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Atlantis the Lost Empire, The Sword and the Stone, Treasure Planet, The Rescuers, and its sequel, The Rescuers Down Under, and so on. But when I think of the best underrated animated Disney movie, the first one that comes to mind would be the 1986 movie, The Great Mouse Detective. After Walt Disney died back in 1966, the company was struggling to produce successful animated films, especially considering how the original animators left and newer animators came in to take over. The new team of animators made their first animated film, The Black Cauldron, which was released in 1985, and it received such negative criticisms and was a box office flop, and because of that, then CEO Michael Eisner considered shutting down the animation studio, believing audiences have lost interest in animated movies and were leaning towards Disney's live-action films, television shows, and theme parks. So, with some convincing from Walt's nephew Roy E. Disney, the company decided to take the risk and release an animated film based on the Basil of Baker Street books by Eve Titus, which turned out to be a hit, as critics praised it and it was a success at the box office. Yes, while it was overshadowed by Don Bluth's An American Tail that same year, it still managed to save the Walt Disney Animation Studios from closing. Had this movie failed, we wouldn't have had the Disney Renaissance. But how does this film hold up 38 years later? Well, let's quit talking and find out. I'm totally Toony, and this is my review of Disney's The Great Mouse Detective. So what's the story? After her father gets kidnapped, a young girl mouse named Olivia Flaversham enlists the help of the greatest detective in all of mousedom named Basil of Baker Street and recently retired surgeon Dr. David Q. Dawson to help rescue him from Basil's arch-nemesis, Professor Ratigan. Since this is a detective story, the movie follows a mystery that the heroes need to solve. However, there's a twist to the narrative. In most detective stories, the heroes, along with the audience, would slowly solve the mystery and everything would come together by the end. But in this case, since the audience would already know who the criminal mastermind is and what his goal is, the story is more about the heroes trying to solve the case and find out what Ratigan's evil plan is. So, in a sense, while the characters are solving the case, we as the audience are just following it. It may sound like it takes away from being a great story, but as I stated before, this movie is more about following the mystery rather than solving it. It can also be considered a character-driven story where we see Basil, Olivia, and Dawson using their charm and wit to stop Ratigan, and Ratigan using any means necessary in order to win. Because of this unique direction of storytelling, it actually works really well. And it's because of the characters that it makes the story engaging and exciting, and it would make audiences feel invested too into seeing the heroes stop Ratigan and how everything will wrap up in the end. It also helps that the tone of the story supplies a good amount of action, comedy, suspense, and of course, mystery. And as most Disney movies near the end of the story, it also has one of the most intense and epic climactic battles of all time, even where it could rival the likes of Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, and Tarzan. At one point, we are given a little break from the action and are treated to one of the most risque moments in Disney history with dancing showgirl mice that would make any furry go, "Hello, nurse." Yeah, if this movie was made today, this scene would not fly well. If there is one issue with the story, it would be how the tone immediately starts off pretty intense. And yes, I am referring to the opening bit where Fidget pulls a Five Nights at Freddy's jump scare. Seriously, what other Disney movie starts off like that? It makes the tone feel uneasy, making you wonder if something like that will happen again. And while yes, it does happen again, thankfully it's not as effective. And even though it does get more lighthearted as the film goes on, it still sends off very uneasy vibes that will make anyone watching it for the first time feel paranoid and expecting another jump scare. But after the first 30 minutes, the tensity wears off, at least until the climax, and the rest of the movie is just a whole mixture of intensity, fun, and of course mystery. I give 9 points to the story. Considering that the team of animators that helped make this movie were brand new to the studio at the time, they decided to do something different in terms of their visual style from their previous works. Instead of focusing on realism like in The Fox and the Hound or having a gothic-like aesthetics like in The Black Cauldron, they focused more on the cartoony aesthetics of the characters and had more creative freedom with the movements and drawings of the characters. It focuses less on the realistic anatomy of the animals, made them anthropomorphic, and let them be more expressive. While they did make the characters more cartoony, the animators still made sure to keep that high-quality animation that Disney is known for and created a Victorian-era London that seems believable, all while making a similar aesthetics to accommodate the mice, almost like they have their own society. It also helps that despite them being anthropomorphic animals, the animators keep the mice and other animals to scale with the humans, acknowledging that they coexist. The mice and other animals are literally the same size as the animals they're based on. It's similar to how the animals were in the Wind in the Willows short. The background also captures the feel of Victoria-era London, but from the perspective of a mouse, where everything that's normal to a human is massive in size to a mouse. Even then, we do see some elements that are scaled down to accommodate to them, almost like it's a mini cartoony version of London. As for the character designs, the best way to describe it would be Sherlock Holmes if they were cartoony mice. But of course, given that it's Disney, the animators made sure to have the unique character design that Disney is known for. And as for the character animation, the movements are very fluid and highly expressive that it gives off so much energy that it makes the film more exciting and engaging. Basil and Ratigan are especially the highlights in terms of the character animation, with the way they express themselves and their reaction to everything around them, ranging from over-the-top expressions to sudden fast movements. It really sends off both humorous or intense vibes, depending on the scene and mood. Then we have some characters that have a more simplistic animation, like Olivia and Dawson, mainly to balance out the over-the-topness. The character animation can range from humorous to exciting, which adds a lot more fun to the movie. And of course, I can't mention the animation of this movie without mentioning the scene where Basil and Ratigan have their battle inside Big Ben. This film is noted for being one of the first animated movies to use CGI, and in this case, it's for the gears and mechanisms. And I gotta say, it looks amazing, especially for the time this came out. Even though they're just gears and it's kept simplistic, the animators went all out and made some impressive angles to make it look so believable that it helps make the climax feel more intense and engaging. It's also worth mentioning how the whole movie takes place at night, and the background animators really captured that foggy night in London feeling. No joke, there are literally no daytime scenes at all throughout the movie. It's a great touch, and it really gives off a chilling atmosphere. The animation is, without a doubt, the true highlight of this movie, like almost every other animated movie made by Disney, and gets 10 points. Also, bonus points go to the animators who created the Dumbo toy cameo in the toy shop scene. The characters of this movie were the key role of why the story was so exciting, engaging, and fun, and it's all thanks to their personalities and the voice actors' performances. Starting with the titular character himself, Basil of Baker Street, voiced by Barry Ingham, he starts off as a selfish and dismissive jerk that would at first leave an uneasy taste in audiences' mouths, but as the story would go on, he slowly starts becoming one of the best characters of the movie, and we want to see him succeed. Heck, I go so far as to say he's one of the best Disney heroes of all time. While he is an eccentric and zany detective, he's also proven to be very smart and clever, where it'll keep audiences engaged and we end up rooting for him, hoping he'll crack the case. We also have his new sidekick, Dr. David Q. Dawson, voiced by Val Betton, who wants to help Olivia find her father and tries to bring Basil back down to earth whenever he goes off the deep end. But his role is mostly similar to Dr. Watson, where he usually just expresses his amazement at Basil's intelligence, almost like an audience stand-in similar to Arthur from The Sword and the Stone. While it may be a nitpick, he still manages to be just as lovable as everyone else. Next, we have little Olivia Flaversham, whom one would think would be just an annoying, whiny, and obnoxious brat, like most cartoons seem to depict children as. But she actually has a lot of innocence and charm and a cute little voice that makes her so lovable, and it makes the movie's sweeter moments feel very wholesome. And it's because of her charming and sweet personality that makes us want to see her reunite with her father. Then we have Hiram Flaversham, voiced by Scrooge McDuck himself, Alan Young. And while he had a very small role compared to the rest of the characters, he's shown to be a loving and devoted father and is willing to put himself in harm's way in order to keep Olivia safe, which makes us want to see the father and daughter duo reunite even more. We also have some comic relief characters, from the loyal and cuddly Toby, the menacing and vicious Felicia, and of course, the frightening yet goofy little bat, Fidget, voiced by Candy Cadito. These characters would add some humor and charm to the movie that keeps it from being too dark, unless you're Bartholomew, who met a gruesome end at the claws and fangs of Felicia. Pretty dark for a Disney movie. Rest in peace, Bartholomew, we hardly knew ye. And while Fidget is pretty funny, it also feels jarring that he was the one who ignited the jump scare at the beginning, and then seeing him just be a goofball in later scenes in the movie feels a bit embarrassing that we got scared of by this little guy with a raspy voice. It's almost like he was meant to be two different characters. But I could be wrong though. Also, what's Bill the Lizard doing here? I guess he joined the dark side after being launched out of Wonderland. But of course, I can't talk about the Great Mouse Detective without mentioning the world's greatest criminal mind himself, who's also the best character of the movie, Professor Ratigan, voiced by the late and great Vincent Price. What can I say about this guy? He can range from being really funny and really threatening at the same time, and, much like Basil, he's proven to be very smart. And because of his intelligence and cunningness, he will stop at nothing to beat Basil and rule all of Mousedom, even up to the point where he made a special song especially for Basil that would set off the deadliest mousetrap ever created once it ended. And, when all that fails, he threatened to murder a child. Heck, even in his first song, The World's Greatest Criminal Mind, it is mentioned that he drowned orphans and widows, and in a deleted line, it stated that the Tower Bridge job involved him throwing civilians off the bridge and shot anyone who tried to surface. He even goes so far as to kill his own henchmen. This guy is ruthless. But at the same time, he's also really funny. He can be very hammy and over the top 1 minute with his Shakespearean mannerisms, and have violent mood swings the next. And whenever he starts getting enraged, he manages to keep his cool, but you can clearly see that it's slowly building up, and then by the climax, he becomes the rat he truly is on the inside. And as stated before, him making a personal diss track for Basil to listen to before he dies just proves that he's got a sense of humor. A dark sense of humor, but still a sense of humor nonetheless. And that's why he's not only the best character in the movie, but he is also one of my favorite Disney villains. It also helps that he got not one, but two songs, The World's Greatest Criminal Mind and Goodbye So Soon. Even though the latter may not be heard in full, unless you have the soundtrack, both songs showcase just how much fun Price had voicing him, which makes sense considering that he stated that Ratigan was one of his favorite roles. The characters have proven to be charming, fun, sweet, humorous, and intense. Even if a couple of characters could use some improvement, it gets 9 points from me. To conclude, The Great Mouse Detective is a whimsical, humorous, intense, and all-around fun mystery movie. If you love a good mystery and cute anthropomorphic animals with beautiful animation and an intense final battle, then I highly recommend it. Even if you're not a big Disney fan, I'd say give this a watch, as it is worth checking out if you're in the mood for a good time. And if you're a fan of Ratigan, I recommend you check out this YouTube channel right here. A certain rat makes occasional appearances in this, and yours truly voices him along with some other characters. Yes, that's right, I promoted my friend's YouTube channel, and I suggest you subscribe to him and check out our series titled The JTG Series. I really wish this movie would be acknowledged more, because as stated earlier, this film is the reason the Disney Renaissance happened. I wish Disney would do more with it. Heck, I wish that Search for Mickey movie happened, as Basil was going to play a major role in the movie. I even go so far as to say this was one of the best animated movies that Disney made in the 80s. As for my rating, I give the film a 9 out of 10. While it may have a couple of issues with tone at the beginning and a few characters could use some tweaking, this movie is, without a doubt, one of Disney's best movies and definitely one of my all-time favorites. Now with that out of the way, I'm totally Toony, and I'll see you next time.